have asked for a better segue for this panel. It was about in 2015 that millennials became the most populous workforce, and it is coincidental that I rejoined Zinnov in 2015. It is also a known fact now that the more you engage with millennials, the chances are higher for an organization to be successful in the long run. And guess what? Last 3 years have been phenomenal for Zinnov. Again, a coincidence. We've done well in numbers, the conference has become bigger, it just happens. Though it's easier said than done, right? The whole narrative is around how do you understand working with millennials a little bit better, right? How do you understand the different personas of who millennials are really all about, right? And more importantly, how do we provide that environment for the millennials to be able to get attracted to the workforce that we want them to be attracted to? To discuss this, we have a very, very interesting set of panelists today. They actually represent multi-generational workforce themselves.
That's a compliment.
So we have 3 millennials and 3, the father and mother generation, who we believe they are 100-year-old. But yeah, the idea here is to discuss and learn and unlearn a few things as part of this panel. So I'll probably quickly get started, and I'll probably start with Pankaj, you to begin with. Why is it fun to work with millennials? What do you like about working with millennials?
Like how many have kids in this room? Means, is it easy to raise kids? I'm going to ask a question. How many have 2 kids? Now what happened? Is it easy to raise kids? So I think all the millennials, if you really see from an organizational perspective, I think means they come a lot with a lot of fresh energy, and they have kind of a lot of an expectation, and there's a lot in terms of an opportunity to learn from them. I think one of the things that I find a lot of fun from them is that they come with a lot of sense of purpose. Okay, so just to give you an example, means if maybe people from my generation, like you said, if I would have told them, like, this is a bottle, and your job is to move from here to here, and from here to here, and keep doing this every day, maybe they would have done it. But come to this generation, means he'll do it for 5 minutes, and they'll say, what am I doing? What I'm getting out of it? So I don't know why people say it's a generation Y. I think it's not a generation alphabet Y, it's a generation WHY. Okay? So he's going to ask you a question, why? So let's say I tell him the purpose behind it. I said, every time you move bottle from here to there, means it's going to donate $1 to a charity. Now that's a paradigm shift, and it's changed. Like, I was catching up with Sahithi and Kunal earlier this session, and like, these people have done amazing work. Means, let's say if I give them this example, I tell them, means this is the problem, this is what we need to move the bottle, and now they have a purpose. Means Sahithi and Kunal is going to make an app out of it. Not it only does it day in and day out, but it does at a faster rate so that it can. So I think that's the fun. Means, I think another thing is they're very informed and they're very frank. I think what they do is they usually have a courage to come up and tell you that this is not correct. I think this is what we were the kind of context earlier. But they're going to tell you this is not correct. And that poses a lot of challenge in leaders today. Like, how come a guy like this is coming and telling you? And so I don't think you need to feel offended with that. Means that's what's happening with our kids. As I asked the question, how many have kids? Like, back in February, my son told me once, Papa, बहुत मोटे हो रहे हो, कुछ करो जरा इसका.
You're becoming fatter, do something about it.
Okay. So, I mean, I couldn't have asked that question to my dad.
Yeah.
I couldn't have done that. I never did in my life that. But he asked the question. And I said, means he's right. Means I think what he's saying is for the good. We need to do that. I think this generation is like that. Okay?
Sure. Sounds good. So, Mauli, I'll turn to you. I think while we all agree it's fun and we've all had our share of fun working with millennials, I also want to read out a quick data point, right? There was a study that was done in the US, and the study says that of the millennials that are employed today, 30% of them are already in management position.
Yeah.
Does that pose a challenge to people of multi-generation or working in organizations like ours and yours? Is that something which poses a degree of risk to the existing incumbent base of people, given the fact that these guys are moving really fast?
Yeah. No, I think great question. Rather than categorizing them as millennials, I think the perspective here is that what they bring to the table, like Pankaj was saying, a lot of strengths, right? The other perspective that I had is that most of them are very well-rounded, right? So you have, them multi-skilled. Like, when I was interviewing, I was talking to you today morning, the guy spoke to me about virtual reality for 4 years back for an hour, and then he went on to talk about how he can easily cook for like 30, 40 people. It's like, okay, so this guy can actually do multiple things at the same time, right? So that is what I think poses a challenge, right? So yes, and the reason they grow in the company is because of what they bring to the table from a well-rounded perspective. Because a lot of companies today, if you look at it, there's competition around us that is just waiting, right? And people out there, people like you and me are just trying to disrupt even big companies, right? It's just an idea that's going to...
Is that the conflict with existing startups? Is that even a conflict that these guys are doing things the cooler way and others are finding it challenging to catch up?
I think the purpose with which, how the organization is being built is what moves it from actually conflict to actually a challenge that everybody wants to jump in and solve. I think that's the perspective. Today, if you look at many of the top 100 companies that are there in the IT industry, pretty much most of the product companies, companies like us, PayPal, what we do is we always talk about innovation, day in, day out, right? And that helps us overcome these kind of challenges because you have a common purpose with which all of us are jumping and charging towards, and then whoever can come in and add value and contribute towards that purpose, pretty much that helps you overcome this barrier where that person is doing it and challenging me. And so everybody buys into it. The other important perspective here is that can you actually sit down and have a conversation with across the generations and tell them what value they bring to the table. Ram was alluding to, how he has open office hours, coffee table conversation. That becomes super important, right? So as leaders, you have to coach them to have these conversations with the millennial as well and tell them what they're doing well and tell them what their opportunities are. And you as leaders, you need to have that conversation with the middle management saying that, hey, what is the value they are bringing to the table? And you help them differentiate what value they bring to the table. That helps remove these obstacles of saying that, hey, you're not adding value, only that person is adding value.
So are we truly moving from inspiration to reverse inspiration?
I think we're moving, I don't know whether there's a paradigm that you can associate with this, right? Because I think we are in a journey where we're trying to figure this out as we go along. And usually what happens is that if you have a purpose with which everybody's aligned, it makes the job easier. That's how I would.
Let me scare you a little bit more. Let me try one more time. I have been doing a lot of research in this topic, right? So I've collected some interesting data points. So the first fact is that while 64% of the millennials like to occasionally work from home, I do, 82% will be more loyal to their employer if they had more flexible working hours. And I'll turn to both of them, Kunal and Sahithi, to get their reactions. Do you agree, disagree?
Agree.
Agree, strongly agree.
Fairly strongly, yeah.
How about you, Kunal?
Yeah, for me too, I'd probably agree too. Yeah, because at this stage, we don't have to get face-to-face with people who we work with. I mean,
you don't want to get into meeting rooms.
Yeah, well, that's one way of putting it. But
I think it's more that we enjoy variety in that we would want to... Meetings every day are boring. Again, working at home every day is boring, which is why flexibility is the key word there.
Yeah. Okay, so let me throw another one, right? 42% of millennials, Pankaj and Molly, 42% of millennials are likely to quit their job if their employer had substandard technology.
Absolutely.
Kunal, agree, disagree?
Totally disagree. I'm surprised. I mean, I totally agree. I'm sorry. I'm so surprised. Yeah. I'm so surprised the number's only 42%. I mean, I would have expected it to be higher.
Yeah.
If I was working at a company that was trying to stay afloat, I mean, what's the point? I would much rather work at a company that's pioneering new technology, that's powering the next revolution of technology.
So we got the refresh cycle for laptop is now 1 year, guys. Don't even try giving an old laptop. Okay, let's move to the third one. Sahithi, 87% of the millennials accept that they missed one or more workplace conversation because they were distracted by their phone.
Okay, so this I probably don't agree with. I'd say it varies a lot from person to person, but it's one of those millennial stereotypes. You know, we're always on our phones. But I do find that a lot of people I know kind of use technology to control their usage of technology. So have your phone automatically shut off. Use a focus app to make sure that you don't use your phone while working. So, I mean, it seems a bit convoluted, but it does work. And I think it's more a matter of personal initiative. When people want to work and not look at their phones, it's something they do.
Sure. And Kunal is one of the rare guys that I've met who doesn't use WhatsApp more than 10 minutes a day, right? Kunal, do you want to talk about your self-imposed policies on social media and usage of phone?
I mean, I can't speak on behalf of all the millennials which exist, but for me, I started using Google Hangouts a few years ago, and that was a new thing that everyone used, and I got totally addicted to it. I started wasting a lot of my time, and I didn't want to repeat it with WhatsApp or any of the other social medias. So I made it a thing that I can only use it for 10 minutes during the night, and in this way, I can really explore what I like doing instead of just talking with people who I meet for like 8 hours a day anyways, so, yeah.
Interesting. Guys, last one. 70% of millennials are more influenced by bloggers than celebrities. Kunal.
Okay, well, that depends on which celebrity you're looking at. Like, I mean, like, no, in all seriousness, I have a few celebrities who I look up to as like an inspiration. Like, you take Elon Musk or Jeff Bezos, their work ethic and their vision, that's insane. That's something I look up to. But on the, I mean, like, if I generalize celebrities as a whole, I'd probably prefer to look at bloggers who are more factual, and I don't like listening to like celebrities fluff. They're like, to me, they're more like exaggerated advertisements. I know that's kind of harsh, but that's what they are.
Sahithi,
Yeah,
your point of view?
I would strongly agree. Because I think the thing about bloggers is that they're like mini celebrities in that they have their own reputation and they are excellent at something, which is what they blog about. But they're also very accessible. I think why I and many people of my age feel so much more attracted towards bloggers is because if you like a blog post, you can literally private message that blogger, and 80% of the time they will reply. So they're super accessible. It's like an expert who you can actually start a dialogue with one-on-one.
Right. So again, guys, stop following Amitabh Bachchan and stop paying lakhs to invite Deepika Padukone for your off-site sessions. It's not going to work. Okay, with that little quiz, I'm going to turn to Molly again. What do these statistics mean to you as you plan for the workforce for the future?
Yeah. See, I think if, from PayPal perspective, I can speak. Our average age is 27 in the India centers, right? So we day in, day out work with the millennials. I think the perspective that I'll share, a couple of things that I want to react to is that typically the millennials, fair point, they want to try out all the new stuff, right? So substandard technology, I think is a harsh word, but they want to try out a lot of new things. If you look at the data space itself, which I lead day in, day out, the data space technology around us is changing every day. But what is enterprise ready versus what can be a proof of concept is something that we have to artfully sit with the millennials and talk to them about. You can't launch something that is going to go to 200 million people across the world when it's not enterprise ready, right? So new technology is great, dabbling in it is great, but at the same time, you need to build something that can be robust, that can transact to the scale at which you operate. That's a very, very important point. Second one itself is that you need to give them exposure to a variety of things. So we do something called a PayPal CAN, like a change agent network. So what we do is we pretty much come into a room with the millennials and say, hey, these are all the different open problems that are there. Who wants to do work on what? This is a way where outside their day job, they have a way to influence what is happening at the centers. This gives them a sense of purpose. This gives them a sense of saying that I am accomplishing something tangible that I can see, right? When you're working in a large enterprise, you're touching a code that 300 other people touch. You're not going to see what did you contribute. But this way, you can actually help them, show them that they are contributing to something, right? The other thing as an organization that we are changing ourselves is that we are actually moving to a concept of called durable teams. We are piloting this. And the whole idea is that you work on projects. You might be an expert, say, in payments, in data, in, say, consumer side, in, say, merchant side. what happens is everybody comes together, works on a particular project. Say I'm launching in India, for example, right? So you work on a particular project. What this does is leverages individual skill sets, but you're all aligned to a project. The other advantage is that this project gets done, you can take them and put them in another project, then they get fascinated with contributing to that project. This is a great way where you can continue to challenge them in new areas and give them a sense of purpose while they continue to move around within that project. Today they can do data, tomorrow they can do, say development Java. That flexibility they have as well. So because they work with other people, right, and they learn from other people as well. These are good ways in PayPal that we try and manage the millennial workforce itself today.
But what I didn't hear in your narrative, by the way, great narrative, what I didn't hear is how do you factor in diversity? Because millennials is just one big cohort of people, but they are in many ways very different individuals, right?
Yes.
While they are great entrepreneurs, they have multitasking ability, but the sense of individuality is far deeply rooted in this generation. So how do you deal with diversity? And ma'am, I know you have done a lot of research on this, so I'm going to quickly come to you after Molly's reaction. But Molly, how do you plan for diversity?
Correct. So generally, when we talk about diversity, right, immediately the mind goes towards gender diversity. But there are much more complex areas of diversity that we need to deal with, right? So what we do is, whenever we hire laterals or millennials, we put them through a boot camp where they get exposure to a variety of technologies and the way we work. Right? The way we work is a very important paradigm because it helps them understand what is the bureaucracy that typically exists, what do they need to traverse, and also exposes to them the important...
But they don't like the concept of the way we work.
Yeah, no, I'll come to that. So the perspective around collaboration itself is a very important lever that you need to share with them because that's what helps them connect the dots in terms of saying where do they stand as individuals and how do we all work together to get something done. Because see, in a startup scenario, I think more individual personas work, but when you talk about an enterprise, it's very hard because you have to work with others because it's not one single piece of code, right? So from that perspective, they understand. So you go to them and say, the reason we work like this is because of A, B, and C, and then you walk them to a particular project that you've delivered, then they're able to connect the dots, right? Because again, they ask a lot of questions, right? They ask hard questions. So you need to go to them with data, you need to go to them with facts, then they're able to connect the dots. And again, the change agent network that I mentioned, right? You should not lose the individuality as well. So you let them decide what projects they want to do on their own, which they can accomplish on their own, and at the same time, which are the projects where they need to come together. That's how we kind of tackle this.
Ma'am, you have done a lot of research in your academic hat, right? What are some of the findings that point to how do you deal with this workforce of the new age?
Yeah, I think what I'll do is just build on some of the things and allude to what they've spoken about. So when we use the word millennials, we are kind of talking of them as homogeneous, which I think I really want to bust that myth, because a millennial from Asansol is so different from a millennial from Rajkot, who's so different from a millennial from Bangalore, okay? So I think that's the first thing that I think organizations pay too much of, there is this need to generalize about everything because we don't know how to specify, okay? Right. So I think that's the first, I'm sorry about that, but, okay, so, but I think that's the one that bothers me immensely. And you remember one of the conversations I was telling you about is the fact that I keep growing old and I teach 22-year-olds. And that remains forever, okay? So after 18 years, one of the things that hits me is how much I have changed and I have needed to change, okay? The three big changes for me as a teacher, and I would imagine how much worse it could be for people here who are leaders, is the fact, the first one is, you jolly well suspend judgment in terms of what you think is right and wrong. Just shut up. 25 minutes, shut up. Why? Because you really need to listen, okay? I loved, she used such a wonderful word. Don't question our convoluted logic on why we use technology to fix technology that we are addicted to. Oh, I love it, because every day my conversation is about that, on how simple things can be done, but they just needed to do their way.
Yep.
Yeah.
So for me, just respecting that and being able to say, okay, they are doing it their way, what's my problem? What's my problem? Why am I stressed? Okay, I think that's the first one that leaders have to ask. The second one, which is interesting, is if you don't have an answer, And it doesn't matter whether you're from Asansol, it doesn't matter whether you're from Rajkot, it doesn't matter whether you're from Bangalore. Just tell them you don't have an answer. And there are 3 kinds of responses. But you are a professor, shouldn't you have an answer? No, I don't have an answer because of this complexity. So who do you think will have an answer that we can help you find? The third one, help me find. And what the third one? Don't worry, leave the problem with us and we will fix it for you. Oh, I love these because my life is about these 3 sets of conversations with millennials and, of course, individual personality changes. The third one, for heaven's sake, just think experimentation. What's the worst that can happen? All of you have been in the industry for 20 years. If they fail a little bit, what is going to happen? Nothing. Nothing other than your status, your respect, your fame, your name. Come on. I'll tell you, and the reason I'm saying this so passionately is because when I was doing the massive open online course, there was this boy who just came out of the animation course, day 1, comes and meets me, and I'm telling him, I want to do something about first-time manager problem. So he said, don't worry, I will animate it. Okay? Now tell me, what is your outcome that you want? Now, I don't understand animation. I don't understand what it can do for me. But he said, oh, you don't know? No, I don't know. So do you think I should do cartoons or I should do some... I'm sorry, I don't know. Okay, so what do you know? I only know that when the person goes into that animation, when they come out, they should just know what are the challenges of being a manager. Ah, okay. Okay, fine. Now I know, and I'll fix it. And you won't believe, he did such a wonderful job of that animation that every time somebody goes in and finishes that 3 minutes, they'll say, how could you just put up Joe's day? My first day was exactly like that.
Wonderful, wonderful. I think if I just abstract what you said, it turns out to be that have a lot more confidence, be adaptable, believe in them, they'll figure it out, right?
They'll figure it out.
Take some chances with them. With that, I'll turn to Pankaj again, and I was just very recently listening to an interview that Satya Nadella posted with Carlos, who's the CEO and chairman of the Mitsubishi whatever alliance, right? And they were talking about the workforce of the future, and as a parting thought, Carlos talked about the fact that, yes, of course, you have to groom leaders, thinking with some hypotheses that you have around how the future is going to evolve, but the future is going to be so uncertain. 15 years down the line, so much of disruption would have happened that you can't really plan it to the T today, right? So have some open boundaries, have some uncertainty in the way you plan for your talent. When you think of companies like Broadridge, and maybe Molly, you can react to it as well from a people perspective, how much of an uncertainty are you okay to be dealing with when you look at millennials? Because they may not know everything. They are the Netflix and watch generation. If they don't know, they'll try and figure it out. If they don't figure it out, they'll seek help. At some point, they'll get there. Are companies open to such degree of uncertainty as they think of millennial workforce?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Like, if you really see, there's a lot of conflict. Okay, first of all, we have all businesses, and we are working and creating all these products, which is actually targeted at the young generation. So you have Swiggy, you can order food now, and you want to watch movies, you don't have to wait till the evening show, you do Netflix. You want to call cabs, you do that. So all these businesses are actually developing these apps and solutions just to kind of have money. They're making money on this. But when it comes to handling their own people as an organization, now suddenly that's become a problem. Okay? The problem is that we as a manager want to manage everything. We want to control everything. But how can you control? Means this new generation is like a river flowing. I don't think we need to harness it, we need to control, or we need to manage it. I think today is a need to let them flow.
So theory aside, we get it. Are you able to practice it?
Exactly. So I think there's no choice. And so we need to kind of adapt and change. So one of the things that we are doing is, like from a training perspective, if you really see, we first of all stop procedure documents because nobody's reading them. So we have converted them into short videos, and they're short videos, like a WhatsApp video, okay?
No one reads emails.
Yeah, they don't need no emails. So like historically, all our product screens that is designed for the associates used to be just very boring. Like associate ID, you put the password and you are in. Okay? Kids don't like this. So what we are doing is we are doing this entire gamification of their products. We're actually considering them as our internal clients, and we're actually changing these things. So they're going to be notification. So it's just like when you play a game, it tells you, oh, today was your best score. Actually, these screens are going to tell you, or today when you worked on this activity, you done it better than the last time. It's also going to actually tell you that as a team, how it is happening. Or maybe like this particular of your colleague is actually lagging behind. Would you want to work towards it? Can you collaborate towards it? So another interesting thing that we have is we have a framework, it's called Compass, and there are different ladders in it, like business, technology, then you have operations ladder, and then you have a leadership ladder. Now, irrespective of the age and experience, like anybody can choose any ladder. I mean, you are from technology, doesn't matter, you can select product. You are from leadership, doesn't matter, you can. The only condition is you work towards it, and if you garner certain skill sets, you are there. You will be rewarded for that. Okay? So this is just to get in tune. Like today's case, they don't want to say that, oh, just because I'm working 8 hours, I'm only getting paid. And so they are trying to say, pay by performance. I mean, it doesn't matter how many hours I work. You give me a job, you give me a problem, and I'll solve it.
So I'll cut you here. The other problem that is far more deeper is the fact that, at least our hypothesis, and after this I'm going to quickly turn to both of our young friends. The hypothesis is that they don't actually want to work on things for a longer period of time. They want to do multiple things in a day, multiple things during their stint in a company. And when you think of your scorecard and compass and whatnot, they're still probably tuned to making them work on a few things for a longer period of time. So it breaks in that sense, right? That while you invested, it may not result into the outcomes that you desire.
I'm going to disagree on that because I don't think that's a wrong thing. I think that's a fantastic thing. R&D managers sometimes say, you have this problem, the associate comes and tells you that, oh, I'm already working on this. I don't care. Just make it happen. This is also a priority. This is also a priority. So I think the way we are doing this is, and we have kind of and like she said, all millennials are not homogeneous, and there are some different, there are some smarter, then there are others, we're just catching up to that generation. So what we do is, the trick is to attract those people, and very discreetly what I do that, when I identify these people, I put them onto a process. And like I said, like we were talking about this impatience level, and they kind of want to do everything quickly. It's a now generation. So what they do is, they automate it. They make it better. And then I put them onto the next job, and then I put them on the next job. So what is happening? Discretely, all my processes are getting simplified, and then these are being done by the other associates while these people are moving. So unless you want to rotate them, like I said, they are like a river flowing. You cannot harness them. If you won't do it, they're going to leave. So the trick is, you have to move them from one process to the other process, and then there's going to happen. What can we do? Like, if you take an example, last year in this room around the same time,
quickly, 30 seconds, yeah.
The topic was, for Zinnov, was like at the warp speed.
Yeah.
So you need to do the same in the organization.
Wonderful. So Sahithi, please tell me these guys are drinking their own Kool-Aid. They have no idea how to attract talent like yours.
I think you're on the right track.
Oh, thank you, thank you.
I think especially in terms of definitely wanting a lot of change, we're looking for, we talked about how we're very multi-dimensional people. We enjoy doing a variety of things. I think that is one of the hallmarks of this generation, that we can't stay in one job for a long time. We're the short attention span ones. So these job rotations, going on, introducing new challenges, I think that's definitely on the right track.
Oh, I forgot to tell you, we created the blog site also internally.
Kunal, quick reaction?
I mean, I'm not too sure how I feel about job rotation, because then you won't really feel too connected to what you're making. It's like you keep changing, what are you doing at the end? But at the same time, doing a repetitive task for your whole career, that's not entirely going to work either, because you're literally acting like a robot, and at the same time, your job is probably going to be replaced by a robot. So that's not an option there. So I believe instead of doing that, finding a job which is open and allows you to explore what you like, that would be much more
And
preferable.
Kunal is, by the way, not even the millennial generation. He's iGen. He's Generation Z. He's 16 years. Kunal, do you want to quickly touch upon what have you invented so far? Because that's what will lead me to my next question. A quick 30-second elevator pitch.
Okay, sure. So essentially what I figured was farmers, rural farmers in India, they don't have the expertise or the agricultural or access to agricultural experts to diagnose their crops' diseases. And because of this, the diseases can spread throughout their crops and cause massive crop loss. So to combat this, I created a mobile app for farmers, and all they have to do is just take a few pictures of their crops, and it'll use an AI algorithm to analyze the visual symptoms of the crops and detect which disease the crop has. And based on that, they can carry out preventive measures and prevent the disease from spreading.
Sahithi, what is the cool invention you have been focusing on?
So I've been working on water bodies. So those of you who live in Bangalore probably know all about our frothing and flaming lakes that we have here. So, we have Bellandur Lake that's caught fire, I think 7 or 8 times over the last few years. And what I was working on this lake issue, and I found that one major problem is that we don't have enough data, which makes it very hard to carry out remediative measures because you don't know what pollutants to remediate. So what I did was I created an app and cloud-based system that makes it easy for anyone to do water testing at home. And then all of that data from different people doing water testing in their own communities is aggregated in one platform. So you can do all these different sorts of comparisons and visualizations and analysis so that you can basically tackle water pollution in a smarter way.
And she's been featured in many global documentaries to talk about her invention. How many of you are getting a feeling of face palm right now? So thank you for that overview, Kunal. Do you want to quickly touch upon what did you do in your early days to get to this level of productivity and invention? What worked very well for you?
Okay, so a few years ago, my sports...
You're 16.
Yeah, well... Yeah, well, one of my sports teachers, he told me to just try out sports even if I know I'm not good at it. And I'm quoting him here. He said, just try it out. Don't be so afraid of failure. And I realized how important that was. I mean, like, school is not a place where you're supposed to develop what you're good at if you don't know what you're good at. So you have to explore first, then figure out what you're good at, what you like. And I figured out that I was good at computer science. I liked it as well, and that was a really good combination. So using that, I was... Oh, sorry, my phone's ringing. So because I figured out that I'm good at it and I liked it, I was able to figure out a problem and then apply computer science very easily in that domain. And that's how I came up with my solution.
Wonderful. Sahithi, what were your recipe, secret sauce?
I guess following on to what he said, just believing that you can literally do anything. I think my school and my parents definitely helped with that. And no, I'm not just saying it because my mom is in the audience. But I think it's really important to understand that, we look at these big organizations doing big things, and even individuals who work on these larger-than-life projects. I think the most important thing for me was to realize the way these things evolve, that you just put in 1 hour a day, and then after a few months, you've got something really big, and that's when you start creating impact. So I think realizing that step-by-step work and not considering yourself small, realizing that everything starts small and the important thing is to start, is that attitude shift made a big difference.
Yeah, wonderful. So, ma'am, I think next batch you'll have 17-year-old kids instead of 22. So
yeah, the way I'm listening to that,
yeah,
yes.
Totally. So what does it mean to be a teacher for millennials?
I think the first one is because they have so many choices, several times they get confused because of the range of opportunities that are available. So I think just playing that role of being able to say, okay, let's work through it, yeah, I think that's the one that you have to cultivate. You don't have a choice. The second one is, I think they're extraordinarily passionate about things that you may not know about. Okay? I had a World War II collector in my class, and this boy would never talk in the class. So finally, one day I said some comparison between Hitler and Gandhi, and the next thing that I know, he and I were best friends forever. Yeah? So you see, once you get that passion out, then you can do wonders. One of the things that worries me is this generalization that they are very flighty and they want to do many things. Not true. Not true at all. When they get focused, actually you won't know how to cope with it. Yeah. Because many times we have tinkered. We haven't gone into the source of the problem. Okay? So that's another one which I have seen is needed. And the fourth one is, I think the best thing that I have observed is that if you are clear and you are logical and you explain something to them, they are willing to give you the benefit of doubt. Yep. But I think the one thing that I can't take for granted is that I will get respect automatically. Yep. I earn respect every day of the year.
Wonderful, wonderful. So I know this has been very interesting, but at the same time, I just didn't realize how 40 minutes pass by so fast, but I'm still going to overrun by a little bit more. And Sahithi, Kunal, quick advice to the dad generation and the mother generation here. Sahithi, quick, short advice.
So I would just like to follow on from the respect point. Definitely, we really like being given respect, and that is when we'll give you respect back. I ask you not to underestimate us. So this is short anecdote. So my dad and I were talking about Python, like, oh, it's really popular, maybe it's useful to take some classes in it. And I have two younger sisters, right? And the older of the two, she was like sitting there, and she's like, oh yeah, I know Python, I did a course, and we're like, oh, nice. And then the youngest one, who at the time was 8, she says, oh, I also know Python. And we thought she was joking, but then she went to the computer and started writing out some basic code.
At 8 years.
Yeah. And I think nowadays, with the kind of technologies we have, you see kids being able to code and create at younger and younger ages. So I think it's really important to recognize that, to encourage that, and just don't underestimate. Respect that and...
Do respect.
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, no, that was literally exactly what I was going to say. Now, I don't know if that was, this is my ego speaking or not, but I feel that my voice isn't being heard kind of a thing. Like, yeah, I think that's my ego, but I must sometimes think that I am at least at par, if not superior to the mom-dad generation when it comes to at least a few fields. So at least like hearing us out kind of a thing, if that's not too much to ask, would be nice.
That's not too much. We can manage. Okay, I'm going to see if there's one quick question. Is there anyone who has a question? Really quickly, can we have the mics, please? Maybe we can take one from here. Yeah, go for it.
Maybe I'll want to ask Kunal and Sahithi on the question. So I'm sure we all have kids here, and there's a lot of pressure in getting into...
You have kids?
I have two young daughters, yes.
Oh, good.
And I want to know, how did you suppress the feeling or the urge from the parents to push their kids into IIT and IIM? Maybe you could give some advice. How could you keep your old guys into constraint? Okay, we are getting there.
Do you want to take that?
Okay, so I think preparing for college, IIT, IIM, it has its place. It's something you need to do. I think it becomes a problem where you lose the balance and you're focused on that alone. I think it's really important to realize that you don't have to study for an exam so that you can go to IIM and then get a job and then achieve. You have to understand that you can start achieving right now and making a difference right now while doing that preparation for future achievement as a side thing. So having that balance between both, I think, is what needs to be encouraged.
Kunal, your thoughts?
Yeah, and I can say for a fact, we have more than enough time to balance extracurriculars along with your curriculars. So as long as we don't waste time, like as I said, on social media or gaming or something like that, you'll have more than enough time to work on whatever you like doing.
Perfect. Wow. I can't tell you how much fun and learning I had on this session. Thank you so much, everyone, for being part of this, for being supportive of this, and for being frank and transparent and open about it. I'm sure the audience had a lot of takeaway, and if you guys have more questions, I'm sure they'll be around, and you can feel free to learn from their experiences. Thank you so much. Thank you, everyone. Thank you.